Chapter 1. After the charming concubine became pregnant, the emperor doted on him every night. 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Boom! Something heavy slammed into the ground with a deafening crash. Bright red blood spread across the ground, resembling a crimson carpet. Pedestrians stopped in their tracks. Some pointed, others covered their eyes in horror, and still others, moved by compassion, pulled out their cell phones to dial 911. Sis, for Xian and my baby, you gotta die. These were the last words Yun Yuran vaguely heard before she died. Yun Yuran had been a regular person. After a car accident, she'd awakened her wood-based superpower. From there, she'd used her ability to foster growth, rocketing from a workplace newbie to a powerhouse. She'd reached the peak of success, but she never imagined her own sister, whom she'd always treated with unwavering loyalty, would push her off a building. *Y*. Suddenly, a voice echoed in her head. Yun Yuran jumped, then, she realized it was a childbirth system. Wait, are you saying I have to do tasks, and if I complete them all, I can be reborn? That's exactly right. Complete every task, and you'll be reborn. Back in the 22nd century. She couldn't give up. She wanted to go back and find out what her sister meant by Xian and the baby. But don't get too excited. If you fail to complete a task, your soul will dissipate, gone from this world forever. Hearing that her soul would vanish if she failed, Yun Yuran hesitated. Let me think about it. If the tasks were easy, the system wouldn't have come to her. May I ask something? Seeing her indecision, the system prompted, go ahead. As long as it's not classified, I'll tell you anything. Why choose me? A cold glint flashed in her beautiful eyes. Because you're not just anyone. You won't die so easily when you enter these worlds. The system gave a direct answer, but withheld the specifics. It couldn't reveal heavenly secrets, for fear of being smote by lightning. Is that all? Yun Yuran didn't believe it, suspecting the system was playing her. Yes, simple as that. No one else has superpowers, and you do. That makes you special. You're right. Should I thank you, then? Yun Yuran's eyes narrowed with suspicion. No need, no need. Serving you is my pleasure. Yun Yuran looked down and pointed. My death was brutal. My eyeballs and brains popped out. After I'm reborn. Before she could finish, the system interrupted, don't worry. Once the task is done, we'll arrange for you to wake up a little before your death, so you can avoid getting pushed off that building. Okay, I'll take the mission. What exactly do I need to do? We're a childbirth system, so we're all about having babies. Your specific task is to go to different worlds and give birth to children for powerful men who need heirs. Yun Yuran nodded. Just having a baby. How pathetic. She, who hadn't even held a man's hand, was now being reduced to a baby-making machine, but to get reborn, she'd play the part. This was a golden opportunity. Yun Yuran internally steeled herself. I'm doing this. Since you're new, we'll give you a newbie starter pack from the system store, and your wood-based abilities will come along, plus 1,000 initial points. Check it out. You'll get rewards after each task, with points you can spend in the store for all kinds of goodies, even skills to save your life. For her own survival, Yun Yuran listened intently. As soon as the system finished, the store page appeared. On the small screen, various items were neatly arranged, **** fertility section ****. Male pregnancy pill, single pregnancy, 50 points, childbirth pill, single pregnancy, 50 points, twin pill, 100 points, random gender, dragon phoenix pill, 100 points, Santai pill, 150 points, random gender, multiple pregnancy pill, 300 points, random gender, 4 or more. Painless childbirth pill, 50 points, fake pregnancy pill, 50 points, body management repair pill, 100 points, internal and external repair. After birth, your body will recover faster than normal, without the pain of childbirth, and all body conditions will return to the same state as before. Tightening pill, 100 points, tight as a virgin, moisturized and nourished, your body will still be like a virgin even after giving birth. Adjustment pill, 100 points, fix body flaws and get a perfect figure. Body fragrance pill, 100 points, the fragrance changes according to the favorites of big shots from all walks of life. Pills for lordosis and posterior prolapse, 100 points, permanent. Beauty beauty pill, 100 points, permanent. Breathtaking beauty pill, 100 points, permanent. Ethereal beauty pill, 100 points, permanent. Life-saving life-saving pill, 100 points, as long as you're breathing, you won't die. Reiki water, 100 points, colorless and odorless, like air, detoxifies and rebuilds muscles and bones, not including love potions, but can relieve pain. Antidote pill, 100 points, cures all poisons, except love potions. Poison-proof pill, 100 points, protects against all poisons, except love potions. Strength pill, 100 points, maxes out at 500 pounds, permanent. Baby intelligence pill, 100 points, boosts intelligence. Genius pill, 100 points, for already smart kids, makes them even smarter. Healthy body pill, 100 points, great health, no physical pain, except for external injuries. Flexibility pill, 100 points, makes the body ultra flexible. Talent piano, chess, calligraphy, painting, 100 points each, instantly acquire any skill, permanently. Melodious voice, 100 points, permanent. Yun Yuran paused at melodious voice. System, what's that for? If you're a knockout, you need a voice to match. A top-tier beauty with a rough voice might as well be mute. Oh, so it's about my voice, that the system offered so much. Yun Yuran was dizzy, at the same time, she was ecstatic. With this stuff, having a baby would be easy, and she wouldn't have to die to complete the mission. The system's mechanical voice continued, the main mission is to produce an heir for the male lead. The side mission is the wish of the original owner you're about to possess. Main mission is mandatory. Side mission is optional, complete it if you wish. Got it. I'll take the side mission seriously. Since I'm using her body, I'll fulfill her wish. What's my first task? Yun Yuran asked calmly. The system gave her a quick briefing. Side mission, the original owner and her sister-in-law went to a temple to offer incense. On the way back, robbers kidnapped them, and beggars assaulted them. The sister-in-law then dragged the original owner to the temple where her fiancé and the prime minister, her father, caught her in a temple, and the original owner couldn't bear the humiliation, so she killed herself. After death, her soul lingered and learned the truth. Turns out, the humiliation was a setup by her fiancé and sister-in-law. The fiancé disguised as the robbers, and the sister-in-law hired the beggars. She wants those two to fall from grace, and the Prime Minister's mansion to crumble. Main mission, the male lead of this world is a great emperor who works tirelessly for his people. Unfortunately, he's been on the throne for 19 years with countless concubines, but no heir, not even a princess. You have to get close to the emperor, enter the palace, and give birth to his heir. Understood. I promise to complete the mission, Yun Yuran said with determination. The system chuckled, happy baby making. Yun Yuran felt a jolt, and when she opened her eyes, she saw several filthy, foul-smelling beggars grinning lewdly at her. Her mind reeling, Yun Yuran glanced around. The scene was one of utter squalor, straw on the ground, crumbling walls, worn-out objects, and dilapidated idols covered in cobwebs. System, where the hell am I? Yun Yuran fought back nausea as she stared at the lice-ridden beggars. The first small world is a bit long without good control. Please read it patiently. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2 After the charming concubine became pregnant, the emperor doted on him every night too. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After a wave of dizziness and pain, Yun Yuran remembered, thanks to the original owner's memories, that today was the day she and her sister were supposed to visit the temple, also, the day she was supposed to die, except, the original owner was kidnapped and hauled off to this dilapidated temple, and now she was in her place. Time to ditch this scene, ASAP, and no way was she letting these filthy beggars lay a hand on her. Yun Weiniang, consumed by jealousy over Yun Yuran's beauty, also resented the fact that this concubine's daughter had landed such a promising marriage, especially since Xiao Ziheng was rumored to be a shoo-in for the prince. She wanted to marry Xiao Ziheng and become the prince's consort. Xiao Ziheng was the front-runner, the darling of the court and practically guaranteed to become the next prince, too good to marry a concubine's daughter. He cooked up a scheme with Yun Weiniang. He wanted everyone to believe Yun Yuran had been abducted by bandits, her reputation ruined, giving him an easy out of their engagement. Yun Yuran felt a wave of hatred and frustration wash over her, the residue of the original owner's emotions. She knew the original owner wanted Xiao Ziheng to be brought down, lose his chance at the throne. She wanted the legitimate sister's dreams of marrying the prince shattered, the prime minister's mansion to crumble and disappear entirely. Suddenly, Yun Yuran felt a flush creep over her skin. A wave of heat surged through her body, like a volcano about to blow. An alien numbness pulsed through her, followed by an unbearable itch that spread like wildfire, torturing her. Hey, looks like little miss is awake. Ha ha ha. The beggar's lewd grins were impossible to miss. They actually wanted her awake for this? So she wouldn't look like a dead fish? Charming. The beggar's crude laughter, mixed with the stench of the crumbling temple, almost made Yun Yuran gag. Feeling the changes in her body, Yun Yuran realized she was a charmer. She had no choice but to immediately buy the powerful pills in the system and take them regardless of the situation. 4 or 5 beggars, without the boost of the Dolly pill, and with the drug now taking effect, it would be difficult for her to escape from these beggars. After taking Dolly pill, a surge of power surged through my body, as if it was overwhelming. Yun Yuran shook her head, trying to clear her dizzy vision, and scrambled to her feet. The beggars watched her rise, already unzipping their pants. Before they could even fully undress, they lunged at her like a pack of rabid dogs. Seeing one of the beggars reach for her, Yun Yuran summoned every ounce of strength and kicked him with all her might. Her aim was off, her limbs shaky from the drug, and her foot landed, well, somewhere indecent. Even though her legs and feet were weak, with the blessing of Daliwan, the beggars still flew out. Thwack. He slammed into the wall, then crumpled to the ground, spitting up blood. There was also blood between his legs, and he was out cold. The other 4 beggars froze, their faces etched with panic. Weren't we told she was a timid, weak little noble girl? I dunno, maybe we grabbed the wrong one. Yeah, right. I saw the portrait. She's just that unfavored daughter from the prime minister's place. Maybe she's possessed. One beggar whispered. Yun Yuran crooked a finger, a chilling smile playing on her lips. You guys wanna try out that flying thing too? That her twisted smile and those words were enough. The beggars stood frozen, fear had them in its grip. One weak woman, 4 of them could handle. But this demon who looked like she crawled straight out of hell. They weren't about to test her. Yun Yuran glared at them, then stumbled past, making a beeline for the exit. One beggar, unable to resist the lure of such a beauty, just couldn't let her go. His lust burned too strong. Besides, with those instructions from the prime minister's daughter, he refused to believe a weak woman like Yun Yuran could still pull any tricks. As Yun Yuran passed, he reached out to drag her into his arms, but Yun Yuran had been watching them like a hawk. The second he moved, she seized his wrist. With a sickening crack, his wrist snapped. Then, she flipped him over her shoulder, sending him crashing to the floor. Yun Yuran planted a foot on his belly, her eyes cold and hard. You had a way out, but you went looking for hell. She pressed down hard, and blood gurgled from the beggar's mouth. He couldn't even scream. She lifted her foot and brought it down again, this time on his chest. She hadn't wanted to waste time with these guys, but this one just wouldn't let it go. If she didn't make an example of him, they'd think she was a pushover. The beggar's chest caved in, and he died instantly. She let her gaze linger on the remaining 3 beggars, her voice a low, lethal warning. If you breathe a word of what you saw today, I'll make sure you rot in hell. Don't even think about testing me. I don't care if you run to the ends of the earth, I'll find you. She bent down, plucked a blade of grass, and, channeling the wood power within her, performed the birth-promoting technique. The grass in her hand sprouted wildly, as if brought to life, swirling around her palm. The beggars were horrified, swallowing hard. Great Immortal, we won't. Spare us, please. We'll disappear from the capital. We swear we won't blab to anyone. Ha! Let's hope you mean that, or else. Yes, yes, we swear it. The 3 beggars groveled, banging their foreheads on the ground. They were convinced the woman before them was a monster, but they wouldn't dare say it. Take care of these 2 and clean up this mess, Yun Yuran commanded. Yes, Great Immortal. We'll get rid of everything, not a trace left. That with the drug still raging through her veins, Yun Yuran turned and fled the dilapidated temple. As soon as Yun Yuran was out of sight, the 3 beggars scrambled to find tools in the temple. They dug a deep hole behind the statue and tossed the 2 bodies inside. 1 beggar was still alive, but they couldn't care less. They just wanted to get rid of the evidence and run for their lives, terrified Yun Yuran might return. The 2 beggars were buried, the hole covered with soil, and straw scattered on top. The bloodstains on the floor were wiped clean, more straw was spread over them, and some was set on fire. The acrid smell of burning straw masked the scent of blood. With everything taken care of, the 3 beggars bolted from the temple and fled north, vowing never to return to the capital. Yun Yuran stumbled onward. Thanks to the original owner's memories, she knew there was a river in the mountain behind the temple. This Hahuan powder wasn't poison. Even with detox pills, the medicine's effects could not be relieved. The best she could do was cool down her body. She waded into the river. Wow, bang! Yun Yuran surfaced, sputtering, and saw several figures in black and a richly dressed man standing on the bank. She was too far out to make out their faces. Not wanting any trouble, Yun Yuran immediately ducked back under the water, holding her breath. After a long moment of silence, she cautiously peeked out. The drug hadn't completely worn off, but she could manage. There was spiritual energy water in the system. A swig of that should knock out the rest of this love potion. Night was falling. She had to get back to the Prime Minister's mansion and stop Yun Weiniang and Xiao Ziheng's plan from succeeding. When the coast was clear, she swam towards the bank. She reached the shore, about to pull herself out of the water, when a hand suddenly grabbed her ankle. Chapter 3 After the charming concubine became pregnant, the emperor doted on him every night. 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ugh. Yun Yuran took another unexpected dip in the river. After plunging in, she thrashed against whatever was holding her feet, trying to break free. Before she could, a hot body slammed against her. This was even hotter than she felt after that Chinese medicine she'd taken. She opened her eyes, ready to kick the guy in front of her, but the system's voice suddenly chimed in, "Don't kick. That's your target." What? Yun Yuran exclaimed, surprised. That's the emperor. Bingo. Now's your chance to seal the deal. He's dosed up with something that will make him want you. This is practically a layup. Yun Yuran pouted. What was with these people and love potions? Seriously messed up. Stop stalling. This is your shot. Blow it, and you're back to square one, trying to worm your way into the palace. The opportunity is right here. Why are you hesitating? All right. Fine. She'd fought tooth and nail for this rebirth. She stopped struggling, and with a sigh, she and the emperor got down to business right there on the riverbank. Shadows danced on the shore, and after it was all over, the emperor passed out, knocked out by whatever they slipped him. Yun Yuran lay limp in his arms, feeling like a beached whale. She silently cursed the emperor's stamina. If she hadn't popped that strength pill earlier and had that wood power flowing through her, she might have flat out passed out from his relentless energy. She peeked open her eyes and looked at the man holding her under the moonlight. He was handsome, with a solid build, sharp eyebrows, and eyes like stars. Even though he was middle-aged, he still looked fantastic. Time hadn't touched his looks. Before the emperor woke up, Yun Yuran secretly placed an order in the system shop for a whole bunch of pills, toning pills, adjustment pills, scent pills, curve-enhancing pills, fairy glow pills, purity pills, and charming aura pills. Watching 1,700 points vanish in a flash, Yun Yuran winced. The system tried to soothe her. It's okay, you can earn them back. Meeting the Emperor got you 50 points, and doing the deed once got you another 50. You've racked up 100 points in just a few hours. Don't sweat it, keep grinding. Also, that system space you got as part of the novice package is huge, 7,140 square meters. Those pills were a gift as you're starting out, but your points will be deducted for your next purchase. Wow, system, you're actually pretty cool. No points taken. And 7,140 square meters of system space. That's gotta be the size of a football field, right? That you've got to feed a horse if you want it to run. The system responded with a mechanical affirmative. Yun Yuran narrowed her eyes. I can earn points by sleeping with the Emperor. Correct. 50 points a pop. If I do it a few more times, my points will just keep rolling in. Yun Yuran grinned slyly. Suddenly, a plan started to form in her mind. Not every time. It depends on your luck. Yun Yuran rolled her eyes. Yeah, right, like it would happen every time. Don't get ahead of yourself. The system mentally rolled its own eyes. She wasn't all that, but she sure thought she was. Hey, system, we were hugging and kissing just now. If I use these pills now, and my body changes, will the Emperor notice? Don't worry about it. Even if you're right in his arms, he won't feel a thing. Thanks for covering me, system. Yun Yuran said sincerely. No problem. Helping the host was ultimately helping itself, but it wouldn't come right out and say that, after all, if something happened to the host, it was stuck with it. And if the host died, it would be taken back and trashed, so as long as it didn't break the rules, it would go out of its way to help. Once the pills were in hand, Yun Yuran started with the adjustment pills to get her body in top condition. Then she moved on to the curve-enhancing pills. In an instant, her breasts were full and lifted, her back curved and rounded, and everything felt firm and supple. Next up was the fairy glow pill and the purity pill, making her look even more stunning, with skin that was delicate, smooth, white, and soft, like a goddess descended to earth. After that came the scent pills, which would give off a custom scent based on her unique traits, and finally, the charm-enhancing pill would make people remember her, with a potent attraction effect. The melon had already been cracked, so she needed to eat one that would keep it tight. The second part is sweet and sweet. According to this appearance, the voice should be gentle and gentle, as sweet and sweet as the tinkling of spring water. With her transformation complete, Yun Yuran drifted off to sleep, peaceful and content. Luckily, there was a big rock blocking them and it was dark, or they would have seen two white bodies. The moment Yun Yuran fell asleep, Emperor Xiao Xinye opened his eyes. The drug had been too strong, and he was exhausted. He'd closed his eyes to rest for a minute, looking at the stars in the night sky and feeling the touch in his arms. He felt a mix of emotions. Ever since he'd taken the throne, he'd never been in such a mess. He wondered who this woman in his arms was, and why she'd been in that icy river. He'd been burning up and about to explode, when suddenly, a body drifted by, and he'd grabbed her. Regardless of her resistance, but he couldn't worry about who she was. He had compromised her, so he had to take her back to the palace. The skin under his hands felt fantastic, smooth and soft. Even without looking, he could tell she was beautiful. After all, she was his now, so he figured he could get away with a little more exploration. Even among the 3,000 beauties in his harem, he'd never experienced anything quite like this. As he thought about it, the fire in his heart flared up again, and he devoured the delicious food in his mouth, without caring if she was awake or not. He was the emperor. He could favor anyone he wanted. Nobody in the palace had to beg for his attention. Being chosen by him was this woman's greatest honor. Yun Yuran stirred groggily, feeling something nibbling at her. From her body to her lips, there was a burst of biting, and the lips and tongue were numb. Those who didn't know it thought it was taken away by a wild beast and was being bitten by a wild beast. The emperor saw her flutter her gorgeous eyes, and a smile played on his lips. He asked with a ragged breath, "You awake?" His voice was low, magnetic, and utterly captivating. Yun Yuran nodded, looking directly at him with her beautiful eyes. "Who are you?" Her voice was hoarse but surprisingly calm, as if she wasn't the one who'd been just taken advantage of. Seeing her composed face, Emperor Xiaojinye was intrigued. Any other woman would be crying and hysterical in this situation, but she seemed completely unfazed. "Why aren't you crying or throwing a fit?" Xiaojinye asked, speaking his thoughts out loud. "Would crying fix anything? You're still on top of me, aren't you? Even if I cried, you wouldn't let me go, right? So what's the point?" Yun Yuran retorted. Xiaojinye hadn't expected that beneath her delicate appearance, she was hiding a resilient and strong spirit. "So you think I won't let you go? Then let's go down together." She was going to be his woman anyway, so Xiaojinye didn't hold back. Chapter 4. After the charming concubine became pregnant, the emperor doted on him every night for. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yun Yuran was ready to call him a dog emperor. He had zero mercy. He fried her this way, fried her that way, every which way. If she were a piece of fish, she'd be burnt to a crisp. The emperor just couldn't get enough, like he was addicted. After a night of wrestling, dawn finally broke, and he reluctantly released her. Yun Yuran gasped for air like a fish out of water. She was seriously regretting all those beauty pills. She was paying the price now. All she wanted was to become gorgeous, snag the emperor, and finish the mission, but she hadn't thought through the consequences of actually succeeding. If the emperor hadn't finally let her go, she thought she was going to die. She imagined arriving in hell, and the king of hell asking how she died. She'd be too embarrassed to say she was loved to death. The sky brightened, and even though Yun Yuran was exhausted, she scrambled to get dressed. She couldn't bear the thought of anyone seeing her like this. She definitely looked rough, a little pale, fragile as a willow branch in the wind. Seeing her fumble, Xiaojinye stopped her, his large hand covering hers. "You rest. I'm really satisfied with you. I'll do it." He didn't know what it was about her, but after touching her, he felt this intense pull, making him tireless and energetic. Even without sleep, he felt amazing. "Okay." Yun Yuran nodded sweetly, thinking he wasn't completely heartless after all. Seeing that he was willing to help her get dressed, she couldn't stay mad. He was the emperor, and this was probably the first time he'd ever dressed someone. She relaxed and let the emperor fuss over her. Looking lazy, Xiaojinye smiled and ruffled her hair. She was so compliant. He was completely smitten. Her features were flawless, her figure so delicate, so pure that he couldn't take his eyes off her. It hadn't been so bright last night, but now, seeing her in the light, he realized she was breathtaking. Captivating. Over the years, countless beauties had entered the harem, all kinds of looks, but none of them held a candle to her. Besides, he already knew she wasn't just beautiful, she was delicious. Yun Yuran pretended to be shy, looking up at him with a charming smile that instantly outshone the sunrise. The emperor felt bewitched, like he could never let her go. Without her, he'd be like a fish dying of thirst. He took her hand gently, treating her like a priceless treasure. Looking at her collagen-rich cheeks, he pinched one playfully. "Who are you from? How have I not seen you in the capital?" Yun Yuran's eyes sparkled, fixed on the emperor, her voice sweet and seductive. "I'm Yun Yuran, from the Prime Minister's residence, daughter of Yun Qian." Xiaojinye paused. "Prime Minister Yun's daughter?" Yun Yuran shook her head. "Just a concubine's daughter. I haven't been out in years, so nobody knows me." Xiaojinye suddenly understood. He'd heard Yun Qian had a daughter engaged to Xiao Ziheng. Could it be her? The one engaged to Prince Xiao? He hoped not. Yes. Yun Yuran squeezed the emperor's hand. Xiaojinye's heart was a mess. "Do you mind that I'm a concubine's daughter?" Her voice was honeyed, with a hint of hope. "No," Xiaojinye said firmly, "it was just that she was engaged to someone else, which complicated things. If she were anyone else, he would have brought her straight to the palace, but she was still betrothed to Xiao Ziheng. Getting involved with his nephew's fiancée was tricky. Even though King Wenxuan wasn't a full brother, they still had the same father." "Really?" A sweet smile played on her lips, the kind that could drown a man. Xiao Zhenye's eyes widened, he'd never been so addled by beauty. He felt like some lovesick king, blinded by her smile. Was he just getting old and losing his resistance? Xiao Zhenye looked away, forcing himself to break eye contact. Yes, trust me. Okay. Immediately, Yun Yuren's expression turned troubled, and she pouted. But I didn't go home last night. How can I go back now? I'm scared of my dad. She hesitated, as if afraid of punishment, her whole body trembling, tears welled in her eyes, like she was trying not to cry, both scared and trying to be brave. Xiao Zhenye felt a pang of sympathy. He pulled out his handkerchief and dabbed at her eyes gently. He felt like she might break if he used too much force. She hadn't even cried after what had happened last night, but the thought of her father had her shaking with fear. How much had she suffered in the Prime Minister's mansion? Are you afraid of Prime Minister Yun? Xiao Zhenye looked directly into her eyes, searching for any hint of deception. Yun Yuran nodded, then shook her head. Are you afraid, or not? Xiao Zhenye pressed. Yun Yuran whispered, whenever my sister does something wrong, she blames it on me. Dad never listens to my side of the story. I know I'm the younger sister and should take responsibility for my sister's mistakes, but every time I'm blamed, the punishment hurts so much. Her face was etched with injustice, and large tears spilled down her cheeks, like crystal pearls falling to the ground. Each one struck Xiao Zhenye's heart, sending ripples through him. Xiao Zhenye pulled her into his arms, holding her slender waist tightly, and comforted her softly. Don't cry, I'll protect you from now on. No one will bully you anymore. Forget about sister this, sister that, whoever screws up takes the blame. You don't have to carry their burdens. But Dad won't listen to me, she said, lifting her tear-reddened eyes to meet Xiao Zhenye's. By the way, what's your name? Even after spending the night together, he still didn't know her name. My name is Yun Yuran. Yun Yuran shyly traced circles on his chest, looking bashful. Xiao Zhenye quickly caught her restless little hand and kissed her forehead. His voice was husky. Ran, don't do that. If you keep it up, I'm going to eat you. He was struggling to resist her allure, and she was still tempting him like this. If the situation wasn't so complicated, he would have torn her clothes off and devoured her. Who's doing anything? Her tear-filled eyes nearly made him lose control. You're such a little vixen. Xiao Zhenye lifted her restless fingers to his mouth, gently nibbling and stroking them. Chapter 5 After the charming concubine became pregnant, the emperor doted on him every night. 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What a little gold digger, only caring about people with power. Xiao Zhenye gently picked up her fidgeting hand, nibbling and rubbing her fingers. Hiss. Her soft moan was captivating, stealing his control. Hearing that moan and remembering her sultry voice from the night before, Xiao Zhenye's mouth went dry. The hem of his robe strained, barely concealing his arousal. Ahem. He awkwardly coughed into his fist, trying to hide his embarrassment. He tugged the hem of his robe to make it less obvious. Yun Yuran was deliberately playing coy. She wanted the emperor to remember her and keep her in mind after he returned to the palace. Seeing the emperor's discomfort, Yun Yuran pretended to be oblivious, all wide-eyed innocence. Xiao Zhenye looked into those seemingly pure eyes, feeling a surge of affection. He gently tapped the bridge of her nose. Ran, be good. Yun Yuran took his arm, feigning sweetness. I don't even know your name. Ha, listen up. It's Xiao Zhenye. He puffed out his chest, radiating arrogance, as if the name was some kind of big deal. Yun Yuran's mind raced. Then, can I call you a Yi from now on? She almost cringed at her own sugary voice. To keep her persona intact, she had to play the delicate flower. The original owner of this body had been bullied and had a naturally timid personality. She had to act accordingly. Any changes had to be subtle. She'd considered calling him Brother Yi to be extra flirty, but changed it to a Yi, considering the emperor's age. Okay. From now on, a Yi is your name for me, and yours alone. Yes, a Yi. Yun Yuran beamed, her smile sweet and satisfied. A Yi, how am I going to get home? Yun Yuran looked directly at Xiao Zhinya. We'll head back to the temple, and I'll have someone take you. Yun Yuran was surprised. You were at the temple yesterday, praying? Yeah. Xiao Zhinya nodded. He'd been stressed about choosing an heir and wanted to seek guidance from the abbot. He'd had tea at the queen's place, but she'd spiked it with a potent aphrodisiac. He barely made it to the temple before it hit him. He didn't have time to return to the palace. With no women readily available at the temple and night approaching, he'd sought relief by the river. He'd planned to wait for the drug to wear off, but it was so strong that he'd lost control the moment he saw her. He'd taken advantage of her, much against his usual code. He knew the queen was impatient. He hadn't wanted to bring another concubine into the palace, though he did consider it so he could give her a title, but her resorting to such a low trick as drugging him had turned him off. He'd been frustrated for years. The harem was overflowing with women, and he had always favored them, but none had become pregnant. He was exhausted and just didn't care anymore. He had refused the queen's request. He had become emperor at 18 and was now 37. He'd given up hope for an heir. He didn't want to draft any more concubines. It was too much effort. It wouldn't matter how many he had. Ran, were you there yesterday too? Did you come to the temple to pray? Yeah, I went with my sister-in-law, but something happened on the way down the mountain. She couldn't exactly tell him the details. Xiao Zhinya couldn't imagine what kind of something would leave a girl alone by the river, but he didn't push it. He could have someone investigate when they returned to the palace. Xiao Zhinya nodded, smiling. To meet like that, in the middle of nowhere. Ran, don't you think it's fate, that she was young and naive, easily charmed? He didn't want her to be with him simply because he'd taken her virginity. He was the emperor. He wanted her to willingly enter the palace, to belong to him, body and soul. Besides, he genuinely liked her. Maybe. Yun Yuran thought. If the emperor wasn't in front of her, she would have rolled her eyes. The system almost burst out laughing. Yun Yuran glared at the system inwardly. The system watched Yun Yuran's pretentious act and heard the emperor's words, and it really couldn't hold back anymore. Seeing Yun Yuran lower her head, Xiao Zhinya assumed she was afraid of being punished by her father, Prime Minister Yun, for staying out all night. He gently took her hand, speaking softly, Ran, don't worry. I'll make up a good reason to explain your absence so you won't get into trouble. Yun Yuran suddenly looked up, her face lighting up. Really? As if she couldn't believe her ears. Of course. Would I lie to someone like you? Thank you, Yi. She couldn't hide the excitement and joy on her face. He could tell she was completely smitten. He felt a surge of happiness himself. Doing something for someone he liked gave him a unique sense of satisfaction. They continued talking as they returned to the temple. Luda, the emperor's personal eunuch, was overjoyed to see him. Your Majesty, you're finally back. I was worried sick. That the eunuch's voice was high-pitched and effeminate. Yun Yuran glared at Xiao Zhinya, disbelief written all over her face. Yi, you're the emperor. That seeing her wide eyes and slightly parted lips, Xiao Zhinya playfully flicked her forehead. Surprised, Luda almost fainted when he heard the emperor refer to himself with I in front of this girl. He looked at Yun Yuran in shock. This little girl was something else. His Majesty had never used that pronoun in front of anyone. It was the first time he'd ever heard it. Yun Yuran blinked her eyes. Isn't the emperor supposed to be in the palace? Xiao Zhinya chuckled. Can't the emperor take a break? Yun Yuran shook her head. I wouldn't know. As an sheltered young lady, she wouldn't know if the emperor ever left the palace. In fact, it was Yun Yuran's first time outside of her home, so she knew nothing about the outside world. Seeing her clueless expression, Xiao Zhinya frowned with concern. He thought to himself, this girl leads such a sheltered life in the Prime Minister's mansion. She doesn't know anything about the real world. Understand now? Yes, Your Majesty. She took a few steps back, not daring to walk beside him. Xiao Zhinya frowned at her withdrawal. He grabbed her hand possessively. Now that you know I'm the emperor, are you going to leave me? Ran. His grip was painful. Yun Yuran's eyes watered as she looked at him. Your Majesty, you're hurting me. You're the emperor. How can I ever be good enough for you? Tears welled in her eyes. Besides, aren't I supposed to marry Prince Xiao? Her voice trembled with sobs, as if losing Xiao Zhinya meant losing everything. Chapter 6 After the charming concubine became pregnant, the emperor doted on him every night. 6. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The little girl's heartbroken expression twisted Xiao Zhinya's gut. Don't worry, Ran. I promise you, you and Xiao Ziheng will break off this engagement. His voice was firm, his face radiating assurance. Luda, not wanting to eavesdrop, discreetly retreated several yards. He saw how the emperor indulged and doted on the girl. He knew that if she entered the palace, it would definitely cause a stir. Who is she? He wondered. Beautiful didn't even begin to cover it. She was like a fairy who'd stepped right out of a dream. No wonder the emperor was smitten. She was breathtaking, and every smile was like a warm embrace. Even he, a eunuch, couldn't help but steal a second glance. Besides, last night we already. The emperor trailed off, but Yun Yuran knew what he meant. Your Majesty, I'm just a concubine, and I'm still engaged to your nephew. What's wrong with being a concubine? Aren't concubines people too? You just don't want to be with me in the palace. Xiao Zhinya's eyes darkened, a hint of anger flickering within. He dropped the formalities and was calling her by name. The emperor's anger startled Yun Yuran, making her tremble as if she stood at the edge of a cliff. Your Majesty, please, I just don't want to cause you trouble. I'm not worth it. Tears welled in her eyes. She feared the emperor would face criticism and ruin his reputation. Xiao Zhinya, though still angry, softened at the sight of her tears. He pulled out his handkerchief and gently dabbed at her face. What trouble could you possibly cause? It's just a marriage. Relax. When I've taken care of things, I'll have someone bring you to the palace from the Prime Minister's mansion. At worst, he thought, when I get back, I'll find Xiao Ziheng a good match. He'd heard rumblings that Xiao Ziheng was unhappy with the engagement and wanted to call it off anyway. Why not kill two birds with one stone, he thought, fulfill his wishes and fulfill my own. He'd even thought of a plan regarding the recent adoption. The emperor's eyes were full of tenderness. Ran. I'll take care of you. If I ever fail you, May. Yun Yuran quickly covered his lips, shaking her head to stop him. You don't have to swear like that. I believe in you, Your Majesty. Feeling her soft hands on his lips, Xiao Zhinya's heart surged with emotion, like waves crashing on the shore. He gently pulled her hand away, his gaze softening. Ran, sweetheart, when we're alone, you don't need to call me Your Majesty. You can call me I. Okay, I'll listen to I. Yun Yuran smiled and leaned into the emperor's arms. In truth, she wasn't taking his words too seriously. Blood is thicker than water. She figured. Especially in the royal family. We've just met. How could he feel so strongly? The system shuddered and complained under its breath. Ugh, how revolting. Back in their room, Xiao Zhinya asked Luda to fetch hot water for a bath. After rolling around by the river all night, they'd both look like mudskippers if the ground hadn't been so dry. Yun Yuran went to wash up first, while Xiao Zhinya waited outside. Their hands were still intertwined, their clothes slightly rumpled, and the scent of the emperor's special blend of Chinese medicine still lingered from the night before. It didn't take a genius to guess what had happened. Luckily, Luda had already sent men down the mountain to buy a set of women's clothes when the emperor and Yun Yuran returned. Perfect timing. While Yun Yuran was washing, Xiao Zhinya instructed Luda to gather information about her. After they were both clean, Xiao Zhinya called for food. Yun Yuran was starving, but she'd been too embarrassed to admit it in front of the emperor. They sat down, and Yun Yuran, ignoring the emperor, dug in, devouring the food with gusto. Luda frowned, ready to intervene, but a sharp glance from Xiao Zhinya silenced him. He was shocked. No empress in the palace would ever dare eat before the emperor, and without any regard for royal etiquette, they were always careful to offer him the choicest morsels. But Yun Yuran, on the other hand, had started eating before the emperor had even touched his chopsticks. And she was eating with such relish, as if she was devouring delicacies from the finest restaurant. Luda stole a glance at the emperor and saw him looking at her with doting eyes. That sent a clear message. do not cross this woman. Anyone who offended her would likely meet a swift and mysterious end. Given the emperor's infatuation, Xiao Zhenye, seeing Yun Yuran enjoying her meal, felt happy and a little distressed. He suspected she'd suffered a lot, locked away in the prime minister's mansion, mistreated by her own family. The way she was eating suggested it had been a long time since she'd had a decent meal. Yun Yuran happily accepted the emperor's service as she ate. Even the simplest vegetarian dishes seemed to satisfy her. Yun Yuran was content, but Lu Da's brow was so furrowed, you could land a plane on it. The emperor's actions were unnerving. He wasn't eating, only serving Yun Yuran. Whenever she liked a dish, he'd put it on her plate with a smile, watching her eat with obvious pleasure. Lu Da nearly asked the emperor if he'd been possessed. No matter how beautiful or charming she was, he was still the emperor. How could the ruler of a nation serve another? He couldn't understand what kind of spell this woman had cast. The emperor was acting like a lovesick teenager. Once Yun Yuran was full, Xiao Zhenye began eating the leftovers. She accepted the handkerchief he offered and dabbed at her mouth. The moment she lowered the cloth, she suddenly realized that she should have waited for the emperor to eat first. She looked at Xiao Zhenye, who was eating her leftovers. Yun Yuran was confused and embarrassed. Didn't the emperor mind? And when she was eating, he'd kept offering her food and serving her like she was a queen. She'd been so hungry that she'd completely forgotten about royal etiquette when she saw the food. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning, skipped lunch at the temple, and then been kidnapped on the way down the mountain. She'd been rolling around all night. Yun Yuran froze, staring blankly at the emperor. He truly is the king of the country. She thought. Even the way he eats is pleasing to the eye. Although Xiao Zhenye was eating, he couldn't ignore the intense gaze fixed on him. He was close to losing his composure, dropping the whole emperor thing. The stare was so intense that Xiao Zhenye had to put down his bowl and chopsticks, grab a handkerchief, and wipe his mouth. He looked up at Yun Yuran, his eyes sparkling, and said with a smirk, Ran, do you like what you see? Chapter 7. After the charming concubine became pregnant, the emperor doted on him every night. 7. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Gorgeous, Yun Yuran said without missing a beat. Xiao Zhenye's lips curled into a smile, his satisfaction evident. Do you really like Ran? I do, Yun Yuran replied, a blush rising on her cheeks. Suddenly shy, she lowered her head, unable to meet his gaze. Your Majesty. Ha ha ha. Xiao Zhenye boomed, clearly pleased. Lu Da, clear the table. Yes, Your Majesty. Lu Da bowed and gestured to the servants, who swiftly entered to remove the food. Once they were alone, Yun Yuran looked up at the emperor and playfully chided, You're such a tease. Xiao Zhenye pulled her into his arms, settling her on his lap. How else would I know how Ran truly feels about me? That he was genuinely thrilled by her words, his hands finding her waist. This woman, the emperor thought, was getting to him. The fact that she felt the same way made him giddy. Breathing in her perfume, Xiao Zhenye rested his forehead against hers, their noses almost touching. Ran, I'm so happy with you. He whispered. He felt bewitched, unable to shake the hold this woman, whom he'd met only one night ago, had on him. Yun Yuran wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him softly. As long as you don't disappoint me, Your Majesty, I'll be by your side through thick and thin. A smile played on her lips, her eyes sparkled, and her radiant face resembled a winter plum blossom. Her sudden ardor stirred something deep within Xiao Zhenye. His heart raced, and he moved his hand from her waist to the back of her head, his gaze fixed on her lips. His eyes were dark and intense, like a whirlpool threatening to pull her under. Remembering the sweet softness of her mouth, he couldn't resist pressing his lips to hers. It was as wonderful as he remembered, soft, yielding, and with the hint of a floral scent. He kissed her with increasing confidence. Your Majesty, Yun Yuran managed, breathless. She tried to push against his chest, but he held her tighter, locking her hands behind her back as he stole her breath away. Ran, hold still, he murmured, his voice thick with desire, barely able to restrain himself. Yun Yuran stilled, acutely aware of their surroundings. It was broad daylight, and they were in a temple. She didn't want to push him too far. Only when she was limp, her eyes glistening with tears, and her face flushed did his kiss soften. The overwhelming passion subsided. Xiao Zhenye was astonished by the sheer pleasure of the kiss. Was it her unique sweetness, or had he simply never truly kissed a woman before? In the past, his affections towards his concubines had been perfunctory, even towards his favorites. He treated them all the same, a consequence of his knowledge that none could bear him children. These days, he rarely bothered with them, calling one or two to his bed only when he felt restless. But this woman, this little woman in his arms, had him fighting for control. If they weren't in a temple, he would have taken her right there. "Your Majesty," she breathed, her voice soft and intoxicating. Realizing she was at her limit, Xiao Zhenye reluctantly broke the kiss, battling his own intense desire. He felt even more tormented than he had the day he was given the love potion, his veins throbbing. Beads of sweat dotted his forehead, and his breathing was ragged. Yun Yuran knew that before she left, she needed to deepen his infatuation, to leave an indelible mark. She couldn't risk him showering her with affection now, only to forget her completely upon returning to the palace and his harem. The system, ever helpful, chimed in. "Host, while acting recklessly is forbidden in the temple." It didn't say anything about the woods outside. A new idea sparked in Yun Yuran's mind. She lowered her head and whispered into his ear, her breath warm and fragrant against his skin. Her lips brushed his earlobe, sending a shiver through him. Xiao Zhenye's senses were on high alert, craving release. Hearing her seductive words, his blood surged, and he swept her into his arms, striding towards the exit. Luda, seeing the emperor emerge with a woman in his arms, hurried forward. "Your Majesty, where are you going?" Xiao Zhenye ignored him, simply ordering, "Have the guards follow, but keep their distance." "Yes, Your Majesty, I understand." Knowing the emperor's impulsive nature, Luda didn't dare question him. As soon as Xiao Zhenye and Yun Yuran disappeared, 10 guards appeared. Seeing them waiting for orders, Luda snapped, "What are you waiting for? Follow His Majesty. If anything happens to him, your entire families will pay the price." His tone was sharp and impatient. "Yes, Eunuch Lu." The guards, recognizing his anger, immediately hurried after the emperor. The guard's commander had been given orders by His Majesty to investigate a matter. Without the commander, these guards were like headless flies. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating dappled patterns on the ground. Xiao Zhenye and Yun Yuran, both breathing heavily, were locked in a passionate embrace against a large tree. "No, don't, Yi, it's dirty." Yun Yuran whispered, her voice hoarse as she gently pushed his head away. Xiao Zhenye stood up, his dark eyes fixed on her, a half-smile playing on his lips. "How about it?" he asked, a hint of anticipation in his voice. He wanted her to experience the pleasure he found so irresistible. Her voice was hoarse. You will know if you try it." She knelt before the emperor. A symphony, both painful and pleasurable, played out behind the tree, a very long time. Chapter 8. After the charming concubine became pregnant, the emperor doted on him every night. 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After what felt like forever, the man, with his refined eyebrows and tender, loving eyes, leaned down, speaking to the woman. A faint, contented smile played on his lips. She nestled obediently in his arms. Her black hair contrasted with her pale skin, her lips were cherry red, her cheeks rosy, and her eyes sparkled like spring water. Whatever he said made her blush and lower her head. Suddenly unable to meet his handsome gaze, he chuckled softly, and she buried her face deeper into his embrace. From a distance, they looked like the perfect couple. They held each other close, no longer physically intertwined, but feeling a deep connection in their hearts. "All right, we should head back," she said, a slight smile on her face, her eyes shining. Standing among the dense trees, she looked like a fairy or an enchantress. Ran, I hate to see you go," he replied, his face etched with reluctance. The thought of her absence left a sudden emptiness in his heart. "Hey, a little time apart makes the heart grow fonder," she said, stroking his eyebrows, the tip of his nose, and his lips. She knew that, in that moment, the emperor wasn't just longing for her, but for her incredibly alluring body. His breathing quickened. Yun Yuran realized she was pushing it too far and quickly pulled her hand away. If she didn't stop, He'd lose control again, and she'd never make it back today. He was so focused on seducing the emperor that he'd forgotten about the big problem waiting for her. Seeing her withdraw her hand as if frightened, Xiao Zhinya chuckled to himself. So, he still had that kind of effect on a woman. If Yun Yuran could have heard what he was thinking, she would have rolled her eyes at him. She'd tell him he was getting ahead of himself. She was just in a hurry, that's all. Okay, the emperor was indeed impressive, and he lasted a long time, but after being pumped full of elixirs and blessed with supernatural strength, her body was more than up to the challenge. The reason she'd nearly lost it last night wasn't weakness. It was more like testing her own strength, and she felt sure she could make the emperor's legs weak and his back give out. No plowed fields, only tired oxen, but she wasn't that familiar with him yet, so she needed to play it cool and not come on too strong. Her internal system wanted to point out what a shameless host she was. Previous hosts had left the male protagonist unable to get out of bed for days. This host, however, was a total powerhouse. If she hadn't been trying to be considerate and avoid hurting the male protagonist's ego, she would have given it her all. Listening to the sounds in the woods, the 10 guards secretly gave each other a thumbs up. 2 whole hours. They marveled at his stamina. Truly a king among men. They really looked up to him. The two of them lingered for a long time before finally emerging from the dense woods, hand in hand. Seeing them approach, the guards lowered their heads, not daring to make eye contact. Yun Yuran blushed, feigning shyness, and whispered, "Oh my gosh, have they been here the whole time?" Then, they heard everything. Xiao Zhinya looked at her, amused by her affected embarrassment. He reached out to pat her head, gently reassuring her, "It's all right. They won't breathe a word to anyone. And it's not good to send people to guard her at close range, just in case someone comes to disturb you. Think about it, if someone suddenly appears when you are having fun, you will be frightened." Actually, the emperor was more worried about someone trying to assassinate him. He needed guards nearby for his own protection. Yun Yuran, with her special abilities, had known about the guards all along. But her body didn't know that. A girl who wasn't used to leaving the house would naturally act shy and flustered around these guards. Yun Yuran didn't reply, but nodded slightly to show she understood. Back at the temple, it was already noon. Yun Yuran went to freshen up. Xiao Zhinya ordered Luda to summon the head of the guards. The guard commander's name was Jiangyu. When he left the palace this time, he was ordered to lead the people with him. Jiangyu entered the room, bowed respectfully, and said, "Your Majesty, I've investigated what you asked me to, but there's one detail I haven't been able to confirm. I didn't want to keep your Majesty waiting, so I came back to report now, before investigating further." "Go on," Xiao Zhinya replied, gesturing for him to continue. "Your Majesty, this matter concerns Prince Xiao." Seeing the emperor's impassive face, he continued, "Yun Yuran's mother was originally Yun Qian's first wife. By chance, she rescued Princess Wenxuan, and the two women arranged an engagement between their children, but, driven by ambition, Yun Qian demoted his wife to concubine status and remarried the second daughter of the Yude Yushur of the Metropolitan Procuratorate. His first wife died of a broken heart soon after, leaving behind a 2-year-old girl. Yun Yuran, Miss Yun grew up with little care, and because she had been engaged to Prince Xiao since she was a child, her sister-in-law wanted to steal the engagement. Yesterday, the two of them hatched a plan. Miss Yun and Yun Weinian came to the temple to offer incense, but when they came down the mountain, they were kidnapped by people pretending to be robbers sent by Prince Xiao. After being robbed, they were placed in a dilapidated temple in the east, where Yun Weinian had arranged for 5 beggars to be waiting. As for what happened next, and how Miss Yun escaped from the 5 beggars, my men haven't been able to discover yet." "What about the 5 beggars?" Xiao Zhinya asked, his brow furrowed, a dangerous glint in his eyes. "His woman, by God, shouldn't be ogled by beggars like that." "Your Majesty, this is where it gets strange. The 5 beggars seem to have vanished. My men searched the ruined temple, but found nothing useful. After escaping, the beggars had joined a larger group and fled north, not daring to stop." Xiao Zhinya waved his hand, dismissing Jiangyu. Yesterday, he and Yun Yuran had met by the river. Combined with Jiangyu's report, he was curious how she, a weak girl, had escaped the beggars. 5 beggars? And how did she end up in the river? He'd checked the river yesterday. He had jumped into it because it was deserted. he figured she must have been hiding there then, which was why he hadn't seen her. "Hey, what's on your mind? You seem so lost in thought," Yun Yuran asked with a gentle smile, seeing the emperor's faraway gaze. Ran, he said, his voice soft and loving, thinking about the hardships she'd endured as a child, and yesterday's plot against her. He wanted to flay those responsible alive. "Yes, I." She stood behind him, resting her hands on his shoulders and leaning her head against his, feeling her warm breath on his ear. Xiao Zhenye reached out and patted her hand on his shoulder, as if to comfort and reassure her. "What's wrong? Are you sad that you have to leave me?" Her sweet voice had a hint of playfulness. "Yes, I hate to see Ran go," Xiao Zhenye said, still not asking her about the things he couldn't understand. As for her innocence, with so many women in his harem, he knew if she was innocent or not. Besides, the clothes he took off and spread on the ground were still stained with blood. "Well, even if you don't want me to leave, I have to go back. By now, I'm probably the talk of the town in the capital." "It's okay," he reassured her. "No matter what anyone says, you still have me." She said, hesitating. Xiao Zhenye turned her around to face him, drawing her into his arms. "Speak freely. There's no need to hide anything. Promise you won't think less of me, okay? I swear, I was untouched before I met you." Her eyes were misty with tears. "Okay, I promise I won't think less of you." "I believe you," he said, looking at her beautiful, tearful face, his heart aching. "Actually, the reason I was in the river yesterday was because I'd been drugged." He wiped away a tear that threatened to spill from her eye. "So, you hid in the river because you were drugged?" Chapter 9. After the charming concubine became pregnant, the emperor doted on him every night. 9. You are listening at novelfull.audio. "No," Yun Yuran said, shaking her head. "Yesterday, I went to the temple with my sister-in-law to light incense, but on the way down, a robber jumped me. He knocked me out cold. When I came to, I was in this rundown temple east of town with 5 creepy-looking beggars. I bolted before they could see me. I was trying to get back to the Prime Minister's mansion, but I started feeling really weird. Like, feverish and restless. I just wanted to." She glanced at the emperor, embarrassed. She lowered her head, shyly adding, "I think I was drugged, without even realizing it. My body was burning up, my head was spinning, and I was totally lost. Then, suddenly, there's this river. I figured, I've been kidnapped and drugged, my reputation's shot. There was no way I could face anyone, so I jumped in, hoping to drown. I held my breath for as long as I could, and then something clicked. I heard a splash, and I popped my head out of the water. I looked around, but nobody was there. I thought, I've been underwater this long and I'm still not dead. And the fevers kinda subsided. So, I figured, better to be alive, right? I got out. As I was pulling myself up the bank, someone grabbed my ankles. And you know what happened next?" A wave of bitterness washed over her, and she snuggled into the emperor's arms, trembling slightly. "So, when he found her yesterday, she was trying to end it all. Thank God she came to her senses, or he would have lost her forever." Xiao Zhenye held her tight, whispering, "It's okay, it's all over now." After a moment, she looked up, her eyes still wet. "Yi," she asked, a sob in her voice, "will you think less of me because I was kidnapped and ended up with those beggars in that temple?" Xiao Zhenye covered her mouth. "Don't be silly. No one knows better than I do that you're innocent." "Thank you, Yi, I love you." A warmth spread through her, and feeling bold, she reached up, wrapped her arms around his neck, and kissed his lips. He deepened the kiss, unsatisfied with the light touch. They finally broke apart, breathless. Ran, he said, "you're so sweet. It goes right to my heart. Yi, if my reputation is ruined, will you still want me?" That she was testing the waters, trying to gauge her standing with him. "No matter what happens, I want you, Ran. I won't think less of you. Now, can you relax?" Hearing her doubts again, the emperor gave her a straight answer. With a yes words, "I feel much better." Yi, please don't interfere with my divorce from Prince Xiao. And I'm not going back to the Prime Minister's mansion today. Why not? Xiao Xinye asked, surprised. Yun Yuran explained, think about it. I've been kidnapped. After yesterday and today, my reputation in the capital is probably toast. Would someone like Prince Xiao marry a woman with a messed up reputation? Especially since I'm just a useless concubine. He'll do anything to get out of the engagement. I'm not going back today. Since a Yi doesn't mind, I'll stay with a Yi for one more day, okay? The emperor thought her plan was brilliant. Everything could be resolved without him lifting a finger. Still, he hated the idea of her suffering. Xiao Xinye objected, no, even though I don't care about your reputation, I can't let you take the blame for this. A Yi, as long as you love me, I don't care about any of that. I'm willing to face whatever comes for you. Xiao Xinye stroked her lips with his thumb. Ran was the woman he loved more than anything in the world. If she was willing to endure hardship and sacrifice for him, why couldn't he do the same? Ran, what if I go back with you this afternoon? We'll just come clean. We'll take the heat together. He could take her back to the Prime Minister's mansion and explain everything. Even if Yun Qian wanted to make things difficult for her, he wouldn't dare, not with him there. A Yi, you're the emperor. You can't have a blemish on your record. And you can. Ran is beautiful and precious in my eyes. I can't stand the thought of you carrying this alone. Let me share the burden with you. Okay, she whispered. Yun Yuran was so touched she couldn't speak. Meanwhile, at the Prime Minister's mansion, Yun Qian was beside himself with rage, smashing everything in sight. From yesterday until now, there was no sign of Yun Yuran. Yesterday, he came home from work and Yun Weiniang's carriage screeched to a halt in front of the house. Yun Weiniang jumped out, pale as a ghost, and cried, Father! Father! My sister's been kidnapped by robbers. Send someone to find her, quick. It'll be too late. People passing by stopped dead in their tracks, eager to hear the juicy news. Someone asked, did I hear that right? The Prime Minister's daughter was kidnapped? Yep, you heard right. The Prime Minister's daughter? Isn't the one making all the racket the Prime Minister's daughter too? Actually, the one who was kidnapped is the Prime Minister's eldest daughter, not the legitimate one. Oh, the concubine. Word is, my seventh aunt's cousin works at the Prime Minister's mansion, and I heard that this eldest daughter is engaged to Prince Xiao. Really? I haven't heard anything about that. It was years ago, so it's not surprising you don't know. The story goes, the eldest daughter's mom saved Prince Xiao's mom's life. To repay the debt, Princess Wenshuan promised that if she had a daughter, she'd marry her to his son. And if they both had sons, they'd be sworn brothers, and they exchanged tokens. Then the eldest daughter was born, and the families sealed the deal. Too bad. After something like this, the engagement's probably off. The woman sounded regretful. You're right, the engagement's as good as cancelled. Forget the royal family, even regular folks wouldn't marry a woman who'd been kidnapped. Especially not the emperor's relatives. Let's go, I don't want to watch the drama. Even if she comes back, she's gonna be humiliated. The two kind-hearted ladies left, not wanting to be a part of the gossip, but some people were hooked. After all, it was the Prime Minister's mansion, and they were eager to hear all the details. I wonder what the Prime Minister's eldest daughter looks like. Is she pretty? A young hoodlum leered, stroking his chin. Who cares if she's pretty? It doesn't matter once the lights are off, right? Ha ha ha. Chapter 10. After the charming concubine became pregnant, the emperor doted on him every night. 10. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dad! Dad, hurry. If you don't hurry, we're gonna be too late. Her hairpins were all messed up, and she looked frantic, like she was about to cry. Yun Weiniang was putting on a real show of anxiety and worry. Anyone who didn't know better would think she was genuinely concerned. Yun Qian's face was stern, and his voice was sharp with displeasure. Tell me what's going on. He was furious. He'd barely gotten back when he was faced with this mess, making him look like a complete fool. Dad, my sister and I went to Qingde Temple to pray, but on the way back down the mountain, we were attacked by robbers. Somehow, they grabbed my sister and took her away. I didn't want to waste any time, so I ran back here to tell you. She pleaded, Dad, we have to get soldiers from the palace, now. We have to rescue my sister. If we wait too long, what if she doesn't make it? And what about her engagement to Prince Xiao? Yun Weining burst into tears, acting like she was falling apart. What did you say? An angry voice cut in. Yun Weining looked up, feigning shock. Prince Xiao. What are you doing here? She clapped a hand over her mouth. Oh, no. I didn't say anything. One of the thugs snickered. She just said your fiancé got snatched by robbers. Ha ha ha. How dare you laugh at the prince? You're asking for a death wish. A guard drew his sword, glaring at the guy. The thug immediately clammed up. Is this true? The prince's voice was dangerously calm. Xiao Ziheng stared Yun Weining down. Prince Xiao, Yun Weining stammered, terrified to lie. I wouldn't dare deceive you. It's true. Xiao Ziheng's brow furrowed, and he turned to Yun Qian. Prime Minister, my fiancée has been kidnapped. As her father, why haven't you sent men to find her? Yun Qian bowed deeply. Of course. You're right, Prince. Even as Prime Minister, he had to play the part in front of the Emperor's relatives. He'd clawed his way to this position, and he wasn't about to risk it by disrespecting the royal family. No matter how angry he was, he had to send people to find that brat, all because of this stupid engagement. Why couldn't she just stay home instead of going to burn incense? That daughter of his was nothing but trouble. Yun Weining caught Xiao Ziheng's eye and gave him a subtle nod. She wanted to let him know that everything was going according to plan and that he shouldn't worry. Xiao Ziheng returned a slight nod, letting her know he understood. Nobody else picked up on their little exchange. Knowing things were working out, Xiao Ziheng was thrilled. He'd finally be rid of the engagement. It was Yun Yuran who'd run off and gotten kidnapped, ruining her reputation. It wasn't him, Xiao Ziheng, breaking off the engagement. The eldest son of Prince Wenxuan could hardly marry a woman with a tainted reputation as his primary wife. Yun Qian, without even changing clothes, rushed back inside the Prime Minister's mansion. A moment later, he emerged with over a dozen soldiers. Just then, a young servant came running up, panting. Miss. He was so out of breath, he could barely speak. It was Li Gui, the youngest son of the Prime Minister's housekeeper. He knew a bit of martial arts, so Yun Yuran and Yun Weining had asked him to tag along to Qingde Temple. Yun Weining rushed to meet him. Li Gui. I told you to follow them. Why are you back here? Miss, those men carried the unconscious eldest lady into the old temple east of Qingde Temple. I didn't want to scare them off, so I ran back here to report it. Dad, did you hear that? We have to go to that old temple, quick. Maybe my sister. She trailed off, but everyone knew what she meant. Yun Qian's face was dark as night, burning with fury, like someone had desecrated his ancestors' graves. He waved to the soldiers beside him. Let's go. He turned to Li Gui, his voice like a blade. Lead the way. Li Gui ran to Yun Qian, nodding. Yes, sir. Xiao Ziheng, equally grim, followed with his two guards. Yun Weining was secretly bursting with excitement. Ha ha ha. Yun Yuran, you bitch, now let's see you marry into Prince Wenxuan's palace and become Prince Xiao's wife. The crown princess position is mine, and soon the position of crown princess will also be mine. From now on, the position of empress will also be mine. You are only worthy of kneeling at my feet, being stepped into the mud by me forever, and looking up at you all your life. If she was being honest with herself, her wishful thinking was shattered, but she didn't know that people's calculations are not as good as God's calculations. In the past, Yun Yuran might have allowed her to succeed, but now Yun Yuran was different from that Yun Yuran, and her wishful thinking might have come to nothing. A few nosy bystanders trailed along, eager for some excitement. They all reached the ruined temple east of Qingde Temple, and Yun Qian charged inside without hesitation. He didn't seem to care whether bringing so many people into the temple would further ruin Yun Yuren's reputation. Did everyone need to see his daughter in such a compromised situation? He was too consumed by rage to worry about Yun Yuren's honor. Right now, he just wanted to beat the hell out of the daughter who had caused him so much humiliation. The crowd followed Yun Qian inside, full of anticipation, but the ruined temple was completely empty, save for a crumbling statue and some straw on the ground. There wasn't even a mouse, let alone Yun Yuren. Well, there were rats, but the beggar who lived here previously burned a lot of straw inside to remove the smell of blood, and the rats were smoked and hid in the holes. Yun Qian turned on Li Gui. Are you sure you didn't lead us to the wrong place? Master, I'm positive. The robbers carried the eldest lady into this very temple. Just then, Yun Weining edged her way through the crowd, her voice sweet as honey. Dad, maybe they realized someone was following them and moved her somewhere else. Xiao Ziheng, staring at the empty temple, was unconcerned. It was what he'd expected. He'd hired those thugs to kidnap Yun Yuren and leave her in the temple. She probably woke up and left on her own. Yun Weining didn't show it, but she was bitterly disappointed. She'd been hoping that when she brought her father and Prince Xiao here, they'd find Yun Yuren being gang-raped by 5 beggars. Then, Yun Yuren would fall from being the Prime Minister's respected eldest daughter to a slut everyone despised. That little bitch is lucky she and her men didn't catch her and rape her in the temple. Even if she wasn't caught in the act. The scene at the Prime Minister's mansion just now, her Yun Yuren's reputation was ruined. Maybe it has spread throughout the capital by now. Ha. Yun Yuren, it doesn't matter if you escape again, it's not like you can't escape from my grasp. Prime Minister, Xiao Ziheng said flatly, since Yun Yuren isn't here, I'll be going. I expect a full explanation tomorrow. We, Prince Wenxuan, can't marry a scandalous woman to be the prince's concubine.